I ended up tightening the heck out of it. The unfortunate part is the last guy that used it stripped it out by trying to use it backwards. So today I decided I'm going to try the bread trick. Welcome back to another episode of Bro Premier, guys. If you are new to the channel and you like seeing cars go from being worth $500 to $5,000 in a short amount of time, then you're in the right place. Make sure to go down, hit the subscribe button, and make sure to click the notification bell. This way you get alerted when I put out 2 a week. If you're not new to the channel, then you know that previously we've been working on my 2003 3.8 Mustang. We've been trying to replace the clutch, and I've kind of been hitting every roadblock that I could, trying to get this thing out. But all in all, today I would like to try to at least get the transmission out. In the last episode, I kind of got stuck on 2 nuts on the passenger side of the exhaust Y pipe that are pretty much welded solid to the exhaust. So today I want to try to get those things off and then get the transmission out. And for those of you that are not new to the channel, I've had this car probably for about 2 years now. I've been driving it almost every day as a daily beater. I bought it for like 1,300 bucks. I put almost 20,000 miles on it. I bought it like 103, I think, on it. It was a really good deal, and it's really not needed much except like I think spark plugs when I first bought it, and an air filter, and then just oil changes. It's been really good to me, but it is unfortunately time to do a clutch. It's very noisy, and the exhaust was pretty loud when I went to put this thing up on the ramps. It was pretty extravagantly loud how bad the exhaust leak is. So I tried to fix it previously. I ended up doing a big gum up weld job on it. It worked for like a month, and then it just got louder. So I do have to eventually take out the header and try to seal back up that leak. But right now we're gonna try to focus on just getting the exhaust off. Also in the last episode, I ended up building a cradle for the transmission on my jack. So hopefully today I can use that cradle to pull the transmission out, drop it down, and then start getting at this clutch and removing it. So anyway, that is my goal for right now. I'm gonna go down, put the car back up on jack stands, try to get the exhaust out, and then try to yank that transmission out and get to work. So I'm gonna get after it. See you guys in a bit. All right, so I think you guys saw that I was able to get the exhaust out. It took a little bit to break those bolts free. They finally did bust free. Very happy about that. It did make me realize that the driver's side was probably just loose and might be most of my leak, that they just never got tightened up correctly, because I think I mentioned to you guys that they broke off so freely I thought I snapped the bolts. So I think they were just loose, and it might take up a lot of that noise and just exhaust leak, period. Probably gonna tighten those things up pretty good next time. Also, I was able to get all the bell housing bolts off. And I ended up making a map because they're supposed to be different lengths, and really I just realized only the bottom 3 kind of have a little kooky design, but all the top ones are good. They also face different. These bottom ones face from the engine to the transmission, and then all the top bolts actually face from the transmission to the engine on the bell housing. So this has taken me quite a bit of time. It's already about 4 o'clock. I'm gonna try right now to get the transmission out. I think I showed you my little plate that I built to get the transmission out. Hoping it's going to work. I think it should. Like I mentioned before, I don't think the transmission is more than 120 pounds. So it'll be a little bit of a pain, but it won't be too bad on top of a giant jack like that with the cradle. Should move pretty easy. So anyway, everything's ready to come out except the transmission mount itself. I'm going to take that out and then try to yank the transmission out. And then from there, once I get the transmission out, I'm probably going to try to do as much as I possibly can from there before I talk to you guys again, just because it's getting late. Looks like the clouds are moving in. That kind of looks like a storm. I'm a little nervous right now. So I'm going to try to do as much as I can, basically flywheel, shield, pilot bearing, rear main seal, all of that. So I'm going to get after it. See you in a bit. All right guys, it is the next morning. I don't know if you saw how much trouble I was having with the pilot bearing. I tried to put that tool on, I think like 3-4 times. And by the end of it, it was actually bending the tool inwards instead of creating the force outwards. I ended up tightening the heck out of it. The unfortunate part is the last guy that used it stripped it out by trying to use it backwards, the prongs to kind of go inside. And by doing that, he stripped the threads of the tool. I don't know how to explain it, but basically there's 2 pressure points that you push out with the end of the bolt. And he thought somehow by reversing that and screwing it down that he would get the same effect, and that's not what happened. So anyway, he stripped it out, then it made it hard for me to use it. When I finally got to use it, it wasn't working that well. I also think my pilot bearing was just at the end of its life. Very rusty. It kind of just shredded that metal as the pilot bearing puller kept coming through it. So today I decided I'm going to try the bread trick. If you guys don't know about this, basically you push a bunch of bread into the back of the pilot bearing hole into the crankshaft, keep pounding it down, creating a compression that pushes the bearing back out. Some people use grease to create like a hydraulic effect to it. Some people use both. I think Chris Fix tried using both. It got very messy. I don't want to be messy. Also, I think the bread being dry will have less effect of squeezing back past the thing I'm trying to push in and actually push the bearing. That's my thought. So anyway, that is my goal for right now, is to get that pilot bearing out. Then I'll remove the flywheel, probably go into the rear main seal, and I'll probably talk to you guys again if I get that far. This thing is taking forever. I'm hoping to get it done today. I don't think I'm going to be finished, but if I can get the transmission back in today, it'd be a very successful day. Oh, and I think some of you would probably want to see this. It's the clutch. So the clutch actually looks pretty good. There is some spots where it's wearing past the wear out sign, only in a few spots. But I mean, as much life as there still is on this clutch, I imagine I could have got another 10 to 20,000, no problem out of it if I babied it. Yeah, I mean, the pads are still pretty thick on the whole thing. Never hit any rivets or came near one. So I think this really was just a throwout bearing problem. I don't know if you're able to see it, and I doubt it, but the flywheel definitely does have some hot spots. Not a ton, but enough that I would want them removed. So resurface, whatever. So I'm glad I grabbed the flywheel for an extra 50 bucks for a brand new one. Totally worth it. I did try to show you those little ball bearings. Those were the remnants of the throwout bearing that blew apart. And I still think I have a piece of the throwout bearing here. So as you can see, it's just in shreds. So I'm guessing that has been the noise and the problem that I've been facing for a long time on this car, where I've been so concerned, and probably just ripping through those hills finally blew it out. So anyway, I just want to show you that, guys, that quick, but I am going to get after jacking this thing up, trying to get that pilot bearing out, and hopefully the flywheel and rear main seal and all that. So I'm going to get after it. See you in a bit. All right, guys, the bread trick worked fantastically. If I could recommend it, it's like the most recommendable thing ever. It took me like 30 minutes to get that thing out, and most of that was just finding the right cylinder size to take up that void of space inside the bearing race. So once I got the back end of that 3/8 drive was the perfect diameter to keep pushing the bread around and back to push the bearing out. It was perfect. Way better than the puller. I can't even believe how quick. I wish I had started with that. I wasted like 2-3 hours on the puller yesterday. Could have had it done in 30 minutes with $1.50 of bread. Worked great. Anyway, I got the flywheel off, and I did want to show you guys, because I'm sure some of you are wondering, but like this right here, this smudge is a hot spot. There's another one right here, is a definite hot spot. And then it looks to be a lot of little ones. Nothing crazy, and I think most of these little ones is from the oil from my engine, because the rear main seal is was leaking. It dropped all little spots of oil that burned in between that and the clutch. So for sure, this thing, I would need to get it resurfaced. I'm so glad I just bought a new one. Taking off half this weight for 50 bucks, I don't think it would be smart. So that's done. I got the new one. I am going to compare them to make sure that they're exactly the same, but I'm pretty confident I got the right one. Next thing I want to do is the rear main seal, and I'm going to clean out this transmission bell housing quick. As you can see, all the grime, yes, it's part clutch dust, but it's also part oil. So I've been spraying this down with Purple Power quite a few times now. So I'm going to spray it down one more time, and then I'm going to try to spray it out with some water and hopefully get all this muck out of here and probably do the throw out bearing while I'm here. So anyway, that's my goal for right now. I'm going to get after it. See you guys in a bit. All right guys, the rear main seal is out, the flywheel is out, the bell housing is clean, the throw out bearing is out, and I also cleaned somewhat the back plate to the bell housing. Now I'm going to reassemble everything. I already put back in the rear main seal. I think you saw that, and I'm definitely gonna grab a seal puller tool. It's like 10 bucks. I was just being cheap, and I think I have one somewhere, so I was kind of being just lazy, but I'm definitely making sure I have one whenever I do this again. But anyway, right now I want to take advantage of the progress that I'm making, so I'm going to go back in, get the flywheel in, throw the clutch on, torque everything down to spec. Then I'm going to come in and do the throw out bearing on this, put this back in. It cleaned up pretty good. It's not perfect, but at least I got some of the grime off so I can move this thing without slipping and smacking knuckles everywhere. So anyway, I'm going to throw the throw out bearing on. I'm probably going to grease the cylinder that goes on just in case. Yeah, set that up and then hopefully get this thing back in tonight. I'm making good progress, so fingers crossed it moves that smooth, but I'm probably not going to stop taping until I get this thing in, or the closest to that. So with that said, I'm going to get after it. Talk to you guys in a bit. All right guys, obviously it's the next day. I tried to get the transmission back on. I think you saw me fighting it for a little bit, never succeeded. So until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll see you then. Later guys.